Our hallway looks exactly the way it did when we bought this house. There's gray walls and it's very empty. So I want to create some beautiful moments in there, and today we are starting with our laundry area. Now I definitely wanted to get rid of the gray fast, so I spent a lot of time looking for a bright wall color and a contrasting color for the trim. Now if you have seen my previous video, you know that this is not my strong suit. I really suck at this. Now I have collected quite the stack of color swatches to choose from, and I finally settled on a color called Butter for the walls, and I had 2 shades of grayish for the trim called Sober and Cabana. So I got some test paints and painted a big chunk of the wall and the trim to test it out. So as you guys saw, I put a white on the wall and then a grayish on the trim. I did like the contrast that it gave, but I definitely didn't like the white. We just don't like white. So I had 2 shades of the darker color, right? The color that would go on the trim, these 2. And what I did, I got an actual white. I don't know how international that is, but this number, raw 9010, that is a color that I think pretty much everyone in this country anyway uses in their house, because it's a very general white. So I tried to compare these colors to the white. Pretty big difference. And this is the lighter version of that trim color that I talked about. So what I did is I actually painted that sober color, that lighter shade, over the white, and it looks a lot better. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to the store again and then get a tester for that. What do you think, huh? You're gonna go back to the store? No? I thought it was a great idea. Before I can start painting anything, I had to get rid of this little IKEA cabinet that is on the wall, and it seemed to have been built inside this nook, so we couldn't get the whole thing out. I actually had to take it apart in its place. I then prepped the walls for painting. Now, don't skip this step, it's important. I lightly sanded the walls and then I cleaned everything with a damp cloth before I finally opened my new paint. Which is always exciting, especially when the color is so different from what is now on the walls. I'm thinking of doing something interesting with the wall behind the machines. Now, I am going online to look for a pretty wallpaper. I'm going to look for something maybe with some flowers and some vintage look. Let's see what comes up. This is lovely, but this doesn't really work on the size of the wall. I think it's a little too small. This is also beautiful. Oh, I think this would look really good. So I would need 130 centimeters and 110 high. Okay, so I've placed my order. Now it says that it should be shipped within 1 to 4 days. Now I have noticed that this company is actually in Sweden. I thought it was in my country, but it's really not. So it might take a while for it to come in. Testing my patience. So we're a few days later. I have already painted the walls and I've painted the trim as well, and I don't like the color. On that little paper that I used, it looked really good. It looked like a little bit of a brownish color, but now that it's on the trim, it actually looks more pink. For some reason, it's really weird, like a weird violet undertone. I have already gotten another can of paint that has a little bit more brown in it, so I'm gonna try that on. I'm also not gonna paint the door yet. I will only do that once I am absolutely sure about the color. I'm just gonna do that new color on the trim, and then I'm gonna move on to cutting and sanding the boards that are gonna be over the washing machine and the shelf on top as well. And then I have to wait for the wallpaper to arrive. It is so hard to tell. Definitely when it's still wet, like this just looks weird. This looks like a whole different color. Very curious what this looks like when it's dry. So that color dried a lot darker than when I first put it on, and it still had a pink undertone. But I'm starting to think that maybe the gray walls that are still around it actually affect the color. So I am leaving it for now, and I will reconsider when I do the rest of the hallway in part 2 of this video. Stay tuned for that. Oh, and while you're at it, make sure you're subscribed and you hit that little bell icon so that you can get a notification when I upload that video. So moving on to the wood, I cut 2 pieces of board that I will be using to create the little countertop above the washer and the dryer. And sanded everything with a 80 grit sandpaper, and then moving down to 180 and 240 to make it as smooth as I could. I then stained it in my all-time favorite chestnut color. So the plan is to connect the boards with a lot of wood glue and pocket hole screws. No idea if it's going to be solid enough. We'll see. If I feel it is not solid enough, then I will simply add something at the bottom to reinforce it. But I really hope I don't have to, because that would mean that I have to go to the hardware store again. And I don't really want to. Look who I found. Hello. You're gonna live here now? In my garage? With your whole family? So the wallpaper came in, and I just want to show you. Isn't it gorgeous? I think it looks great. I am incredibly curious what it's gonna look like with the wall color. I have never done this before. I have never used wallpaper anywhere. So, worst case scenario, I'm gonna mess it up and we have no wallpaper at all. Are there instructions? Yes! I can do this. So to make sure that my first piece of wallpaper was exactly straight, I drew a line on the wall using a level, and then I simply followed the instructions that it came with and hoped that I wouldn't mess it up. That was surprisingly easy. It looks amazing. Very happy with it. What I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna find a piece of wood that I can put on the wall right there so that the board can rest on it. And then we're gonna move on to hanging a shelf. Now, I have not decided yet how I'm gonna do that. I could simply do a shelf that is gonna go all the way from left to right. Maybe I will simply do 2 small shelves, like one here and one a little lower. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna go and do the big board, and then maybe by that time I will have made a decision. But first I have to go to the garage because I think I left my tape measure there, and I cannot go out this door because it's locked from the outside. And it is gorgeous outside, so I plan my day very well. I am doing all the hard work in the morning, and then later today, when it's too warm to do anything, I can spend my time editing the video or doing nothing with a glass of wine. It all depends on how far we get today. So I've unlocked that door now so that I can get out if, you know, the house is on fire. Yay! There it is. So the washing machine and the dryer are exactly the same height. I want the boards to be pretty close to the machine, but not touching it, obviously, because the washing machine will move when it's running. So I'm gonna go with 85. Yeah, 85. Here I see that it would be too crowded if I put 2 shelves up there, so it's definitely going to be 1. I'm going to go and create the shelf, and then we can put that up. We would have to remove this again so that we can reach, and then at the same time we can stain that board at the bottom that you may have seen I skipped because I ran out of stain. Now that the shelf is on the wall, it was time to put the top piece back in and finally start the best part, the decorating, so that I can finally show you the end result. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like it if you did, and I hope to see you in the next one.